Hello and welcome to our session on distributed design and innovation, a rather special session, and it's going to be based on two separate panels discussing things. This is the first of a series of events this week. Also, later on today, we have a session, can we get the next slide? A session where we are be looking at a session in Arabic, Creative Arabs, which will take place shortly after this one. And following on for this from this next Sunday, next Saturday we'll be having a session introducing the big summer event. This is the overall schedule for the events this summer. We kick off with the Doctoral Consortium that Philip Jan is organising. That'll be followed by the CDRF conference itself. The opening ceremony takes place on the 26th of June, and we have a series of workshops between the 27th of June and the 2nd of July. The workshops this year will be structured around language channels as opposed to areas as such. And we are building up, I think, one of the most impressive list of workshops that we've ever held on in Digital Futures. And then eventually on the 3rd of July, we will have the closing ceremony. Next week, we will be holding a session where we will discuss in more detail the workshops that will be held this summer. Next slide, please. So going back to the session today, the two panels will be chaired by Tomas Diaz for the first one and Tomas Vivanco for the second one. Let me just simply say a few words of introduction for Tomas Vivanco. Tomas Vivanco is a central part of the Digital Futures program. He is a PhD candidate on the Digital Futures International program, along with Marcus Farr, who just a few days ago was chairing a session on sand. Tomas divides his time between IAC in Barcelona, the Institute of Advanced Architecture of Catalonia, where he himself graduated and where he has been responsible for setting up a number of initiatives, and the Pontifical Catholic University of Chile, where he holds a post as a professor. Tomas has got a very extensive CV, and he's been responsible for introducing the Fablab both to Barcelona and also to Santiago itself. Along with his many accomplishments, he's also managed to fit in some experience as being the captain of the Chilean rugby team, which is something that I will always remember him for. So I'm going to hand over to Tomas Vivanco, who's going to be then introducing these two panels, and I'll be joining you again at the end for the questions. So welcome, Tomas. Good to see you.
Thank you very much, Neil. Good to see you again and all the DigitalFUTURES team. Today, I am really happy to present or to introduce this panel, this distributed design and innovation panel, with an important group of faculty, researchers, and activists that are working in different contexts, proving and testing different ways of how to reconfigure technology, ecosystems, and communities. All these presenters today will be part of a new program that we're going to have. This is the Master in Design for Distributed Innovation, organized by FabCity Foundation and in collaboration with IAC and Fablab Barcelona. To start, I would like to introduce Tomas Diaz. Tomas Diaz is he was the former director of Fablab Barcelona. He's the executive director of FabCity Foundation and also part of the IAC member of trustees. And he will be presenting the first panel. So Tomas, welcome. I leave you the stand.
Thank you very much, Tomas and Neil, for giving us the opportunity to share in this space the work that we are building collaboratively with the people that is part of this panel and other institutions around the world. So I'm going to be very brief for the sake of listening to the important presentations of our participants. But just to give a little bit of context, we are in a very changing world. I think that I don't have to explain to you how complex the world has turned and how I would say how demanding is or how needed it is to transform almost everything, right? From what we consume, how we produce things in the different places of the world that we are. we are seeing now that different crises are increasing. We are seeing that we are in a moment of convergence of technology. This can be compared with the beginning of the 20th century and many other points of history in which big events combined with a new technological power has produced changes that lasted for decades and sometimes for centuries. We believe we are in that moment. We have great opportunities to reconfigure the way, as I said before, how we produce and consume almost everything everywhere in the world. And in order to do that, we need to create enabling environments, and also we need to create new forms of learning. So part of this approach is what we're trying to do from the Fab City Foundation, and creating a space for learning, and a space for innovation, and a space to learn, for research, and that is distributed, that is trying to bring education to people, that is trying to bring knowledge to people, and not just move them to the cathedrals of design and the cathedrals of technology around the world. So we hope that during the next few minutes, you're going to get inspired by the people that is working on different systems, using different technologies, different systemic approaches to design and innovation, and we hope that we have a fruitful conversation. So in order to start, I would like to ask Alysia Garmulewicz. Maybe I pronounced very wrongly your last name, but it's really great to see you again. Alysia, I think I'm gonna make many mistakes, as many with you, on introducing from my side, introducing you from my side. So I hand it over to you, so you use the best way, the time that you have. Please take around 8 to 10 minutes if Elizabeth doesn't show up, so we have a couple of minutes extra for discussion later on. Thank you.
Thanks, Tomas. It's a pleasure to be with everyone today, and I'm looking forward to all the panelist discussions. My name is Alysia Garmulewicz. I'm a professor of the circular economy at the University of Santiago in Chile. Together with Liz Corbin, I lead Materium, which is an open platform for biomaterials research and development. What I'm going to be talking about today is really embedded in a lot of the research that we do, and also the kind of applied approach that we have through the vehicle of Materium. So just to set the context right, in terms of participation in this program, it'll be a team effort on behalf of the Materium team, which we believe will enrich the content enormously. So although I'm going to be introducing the concepts that we'll be touching upon, we'll also be drawing on experts within the Materium team to actually provide that content in a lot more detail. So I will share my screen and start the presentation. Okay, so the theme that we're going to be weaving throughout the content provided is the area of regenerative materials for a circular economy. And I'll touch upon what that means, but broadly speaking, we're talking about materials that have a net positive effect for the biosphere as well as for production and consumption systems. We are motivated very much by the challenge that everyone is very familiar with. We focus a lot on the waste that's accumulating in ecosystems, the pollutants that are polluting pretty much the soil, the ocean, the atmosphere, drinking water, animal biomass. And according to what Tomas was just mentioning, this is really a critical moment that's accelerating in its gravity. So increasing, we're set to increase from about 23 million metric tons in 2016 to 53 million metric tons per year of plastic waste entering the ocean. And so you just see that we're not only at a critical moment now, but it's going to get more and more acute. So we need to change pretty much everything in the way in which we produce materials in order to address this challenge. And so broadly speaking, we are looking at a kind of vision of transformation from a centralized and linear production economy, whereby petroleum really feeds this centralized production system. We dig up petroleum in certain locations, we transform it into products, and then we export that worldwide, and that waste then accumulates wherever that material ends up. We're looking at how do we enable, and this is part of what we want to collectively develop and brainstorm, because we certainly don't have all the answers. It's more of a jumping off point for research, for experimentation, for good ideas, to a more distributed and regenerative economy, whereby materials are produced in multiple locations all over the world where it makes sense. And then that's fed into distributed design and production systems. And those materials go back into nutrients to feed the source ecosystems that are part of this whole system. And so in order to enable that larger transition, there's a number of different opportunities that we can take advantage of. The first opportunity is just the abundance of biopolymers in the biosphere. And I think it's really important to put the context of, this 53 million tons that are coming at us that are going to be disposed of in the ocean within a decade. That's, if you actually look at plastics production overall, it's minuscule compared to the amount of biopolymers that are produced in the biosphere year on year. So if you look at cellulose, it's about 2 teratons per year, which is orders of magnitude more than the annual plastics production, which is around 300 and something million tons per year. And chitin as well is a really abundant. Cellulose is pretty much in every plant on the planet, plant matter. Chitin is the building block of crustaceans and the cell walls of fungi. That's around 10 to the 11th tons per year. And just to give you a sense, 1 year of production of chitin is equivalent to greater than 300 years of current plastics production. So if you just understand how those numbers scale, it's just astonishing the amount of, it's a design challenge that we see. So obviously all of those biopolymers are going back into nutrient cycles. And so producing materials as humans is not necessarily problematic. It's what we produce them from. And actually understanding the way in which we produce in a systems lens, so that those nutrients are nutrients after end of life. So that's one of the opportunities we see. The other aspect of, I just wanted to draw on briefly, the kind of some of the theory that we'll be integrating into the course. I'm not going to go into all of these, but this is a snapshot of some of the principles that we've been developing as a Materium team that reflects how to go about this kind of transition that we're talking about. So designing for biological or technical loops is very much that kind of butterfly diagram from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation of circular economy. But we're also going to be looking a lot at life-friendly chemistry from the Biomimicry Institute. And then also on the right side, there's a lot about managing connectivity, systems feedback, which is really about understanding complex adaptive systems and our place in them. And then finally, looking at governance and participation. So polycentric governance, enabling openness. A lot of these, we see the kind of how these all come together is really critical for enabling this systems transition. So we'll be feeding or integrating these themes throughout. So the first main principle that we'll be engaging with is this idea of regenerative. So we place emphasis on the net positive of outcomes in terms of how a material could actually feed an ecosystem, enhance biodiversity, sequester carbon. These are the kind of metrics that we'd be looking for making a material with those kind of qualities. Second, we want to foreground the place of the place-based or context-specific aspect of materials development. So throughout this course, you'll actually be doing a lot of practical work in materials development, but we'll be doing that from a place of understanding the regional context that you're in and what makes sense for materials development within where you are. And third, we're going to be focusing a lot on living systems as a inspiration for change and actually a teacher for how we go about it, not just at the kind of individual level of, say, life-friendly chemistry of how organisms make materials, but also about how it makes sense within an ecosystem lens of understanding how nutrient flows work in networks. This is just a snapshot of some of that context-based approach. So we look a lot at eco-regional analysis. So that it's a really nice approach, which is one step down from, say, well, the biosphere, and then you need to look even more closely at what kind of plants and animals and biota make up your actual location. And so because of this distributed nature of this course, it's a beautiful opportunity to be able to understand different eco-regional characteristics. So for instance, you know, there's an amazing example of a context-specific material company in Mexico that's doing cactus leather. Now that doesn't necessarily make sense in every bioregion or ecoregion globally, but it can be really transferable to, say, the area of Santiago where I live, as well as like in the Mediterranean. So you have to think about like not only the specificity, but also the connections that the ecoregional lens can bring to light. And that can really be a design inspiration for what materials may make sense within a certain context. We also look at not only natural abundance, so I've touched on that quite a lot. Like for instance, this is a snapshot of where red algae is plentiful in the world. And red algae can be used for making really nice thin film plastics, which is what part of the project we're developing in the south of Chile at the moment. But also at the city level. So this is some of the work we've done in the context of a project called Reflow in Europe with different European cities. I believe this is Milan, where Pilar, one of our researchers, has done an incredible job of looking at basically the amount of unavoidable food waste per year. This is done in concert with Metabolic Institute as well. And then looking at the biopolymers that can be extracted from those unavoidable sources of food waste. And unavoidable is very intentional in the sense that food waste can be, you know, got rid of in the system for a good reason, but unavoidable means, for instance, banana peels or coffee grounds or something that can't be edible. So quantifying this and understanding the available materials, ingredients that are available for any given material initiative is the starting point for our development. So this is where in the course we'll be looking at that kind of eco-regional lens, then looking at what data you can collect around you, be it at the city level or with natural abundance. We'll also be with the natural abundance story. We focus a lot on how you can actually scale or produce a material that is regenerative, making sure that nutrient flows are managed and the appropriate basically waste products are going back into feeding that ecosystem. And it's not only okay at a certain level, but it's actually a kind of positive part of that ecosystem. So there's a lot of really interesting intricacies in that to make sure that sourcing natural biomass is something that's not extractive, which is the whole point. We're also going to be focusing a lot on life-friendly chemistry. So Charlene on our team is a real big expert in life-friendly chemistry and actually understanding how nature does chemistry and then mimicking that. We're also going to be looking a lot at how you can explore the performance ranges of biomaterials through some data analysis methods and tools. This is a snapshot of some agar bioplastics and how they line up with petroleum plastics. So you'll actually be able to see like for like of understanding how materials can sometimes even outperform existing commercial materials on the market, but certainly explore their performance ranges. And then, as I said, we'll be actually doing real material experimentation. So not only looking at context of where they come from and ingredients and chemistry, but also then going on to make them and understand their potential applications on the basis of their properties. And finally, we'll be looking a lot at some of the bright spots in the kind of changing landscape of material design and entrepreneurship. So a lot of these companies we're working with, and understanding their challenges in terms of scaling in a more horizontal way rather than in a vertical mass production way, which is a really important characteristic of how this is going to be a regenerative model of production, not just material prototyping. So we'll touch a lot on that kind of regenerative scaling approach, which includes a more horizontal aspect and how these companies are grappling with that. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time and I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much, Alysia. I think we're going to go back to some of the points that you touched. I think there are things that we're going to see across the different presentations, but also we are going to see a lot of complementarities, right? Like you touch points like governance, which start to resonate with the kind of work that Akasha and some of the people in the Ethereum Foundation has been doing. And in order to know a little bit more about that, I hand it over to Lorenzo. And again, Lorenzo, I feel like many of us were wearing different hats, so I allow you to introduce yourself to use the hat you want.
Well, regarding hats, I don't know where to start. I have a background in mechanical engineering, in product design, as an interior designer and cinematography, art direction for cinematography. So it's pretty broad, I would say. I have to say, I started contemplating the consequences of information due to a personal investigation about society a few years ago, 1 decade now. And I was very curious about what blockchain could actually help us to make this world better. Together with other people, we started a pretty interesting project. One of those was Ethereum Foundation, and is now worldwide recognized. My task in there was just to help with the vision and visual language, say. After that, I've been working a lot with one of the founders, tackling the information technology and how our current system is strictly related to economics, and therefore it's a deviation, unnecessary deviation, and very dangerous deviation of culture. We started a project called Akasha Project. It was an attempt to do a social network, decentralized social network, peer-to-peer, decentralized on Web3, on Ethereum. And it was pretty successful. The technology behind was still pretty slow, so we started thinking about other possibilities. And one of those that was for us very important was to share our knowledge, our technology. And so we started doing this Akasha wireframe, which is a kind of WordPress for social networks, and following our values and the social responsibility that we charge ourselves with. It's a work in progress project right now, and it is being developed by around 20 people around the world. So once again, it's a collaborative effort. We are connected through values, basically, mainly. And there is a pretty nice team, very prepared team around. So it's very nice to be able to share this, and I can see there is a good possibility that we can actually tackle and modify this information system. From there, I started since my background is more in real life, more physical, more material, if you want, strictly linked to society and local society mainly. I started this project, which is Akasha Hub, which is a place and a community linked again by one idea of or one main concept of trying to understand society and seeing that there are so many things to change that we kind of feel useless in the day-by-day generally. So we gather together and try to think if there are any other possibilities to make it work. I have a strong opinion there. We need to be collaborative. We need to be together, working together toward one direction, as opposed as the current usual system of each one going to work just for a salary and then complaining about how society is working. So we're trying to make it to integrate this personal effort and skills towards a common good. So from there, we started a project. Thank you for the slide. This is our webpage in Akasha.org. This is the main organization. You can find some more information in akasha.barcelona as well. Referring about the hub. In this space, we do events to gather people together towards a common issue or preoccupation. We try to understand if what's wrong, what we can do right. We try to understand which tools, which technology we have in our hands. And by technology, I mean everything that help us to do more things with less effort. AI is technology, blockchain is technology, theater is technology, pencil is a technology, knowledge, language, education is technology to me. So we're trying to gather everything together, all the fields we can tackle through our broad community, local broad community for now, in a holistic approach. So after that, we start proposing projects again collaboratively, and some of those are actually pretty active and are proposing a new business model, proposing a new way for neighborhood to work, a new way for energy, for food production. I'm actually following the it's synchronous with the slides. So it's in my opinion, this is a first attempt, and not the first actually. It's an attempt and a good one, I think, to gather together and propose something to society. We are collaborating actually with a local government, with universities, we're research department of some company, with the main goal and the common goal to take away egos and tackling directly the very basic function of the project to be useful for society. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. We have two spaces in Barcelona. It's this place is actually for thinking, for planning, for making projects and work together. And we have another pretty similar space just around the corner. It's for materializing ideas. So it's kind of in the following the idea of Fablab to play around materiality and propose a new way of consuming, of packaging, of producing, from bioarchitecture to biomaterial to just reuse old furniture or waste, local waste as plastic, as furniture, as tools that the neighborhood is donating us. So from there, we start doing stuff together. It's a pretty nice environment.
Super. Thank you very much, Lorenzo. And together with Lorenzo, the Akasha team, and also the Ethereum Foundation, we hope to bring these approaches to placemaking, but also to governance and organizing distributed models or distributed systems, using the potential of technologies like blockchain in order to, help to build this. I think at this systematic transformation of almost everything as we know it, right? Like from highly centralized distributed systems to highly distributed ones. And since I think I'm going to use a couple of minutes, since we don't have the other speakers, to actually put a couple of slides, if you allow me, and then we're going to have later on our presentation. And then just wanted to contextualize that I think we are together in this quest. No, we're trying to change one of the biggest consumers, the biggest monsters. These cities I usually call them, they are like octopuses. They have these tentacles, sucking resources from all over the world, and they depend on global supply chains that, as we see now, they're very fragile, and their stability cannot be put on stone. We're seeing now how fragile is our energy dependency, especially in Europe, or how the food systems are going to be disrupted by intervention of climate change, and also the externalities that our current centralized production model causes. No, so we're trying to bring this idea of again, as transforming the way we produce and consume to cities and bioregions in 40 years. And I wanted to just quickly go over this diagram that is actually, maybe some of you know it very well, especially Lorenzo, I guess, but it's, this is the topology diagram of networks, but it can be taken to production. It could be taken to materials, as Alysia was saying. We're in a nutshell, we're talking about same things. It's the reorganization of our material ecology, the reorganization of our information, the reorganization of our production infrastructures in order to foster a more distributed, but also more distributive model of production that also considers that not only humans, but also other forms of life inhabit this world. No? I just quickly, and to finalize, I want to say that the stuff that we're doing is trying to be organized. We're trying to organize it in these discrete parts of this big challenge, right? It's like you cannot just say, look, okay, tomorrow I'm gonna go and convince people to produce things differently, right? Well, we are proposing to organize this challenge in more discrete parts, and this is the full stack approach. And with the full stack approach, we hope that in each one of the layers that we work from enabling technologies and infrastructure all the way up for platforms for global collaboration, we can build this kind of a top-down, bottom-up approach that actually is where we believe I wouldn't say the solution, because it's not a solution, but it's also where we can start to find opportunities for experimentation and to find out together how we're going to reconfigure all of this, and I think on the lines that Alysia was saying. So I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to save some of the time for questions from the public at the end. And I think that this is time to hand it over to Tomas, that is going to also has to deal with very short time to accommodate 3 speakers and then having the questions at the end. Thank you again, Great. Lorenzo and Alysia.
Thank you very much, Tomas. Now, these upcoming 3 panelists will be talking about technologies in different scales. Maybe we will see like these multiple scales and approaches of combining bio and digital technologies in the scale of maybe forest communities, but also in the scale of bioregions. So I would like to introduce you first, Giovanna Danies from Universidad de los Andes, Colombia. Giovanna, she's a biologist and a microbiologist. She also has a PhD in phytopathology, I think. I don't know the right translation in English.
Plant pathology.
For that. Plant pathology. Thank you, Giovanna. And currently, she's an associate professor of the School of Design in the Universidad de los Andes. So, Giovanna, welcome and thank you for coming. The stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to share my screen. Please let me know if you're seeing my screen.
Yes, we can see it.
Super. Yes, so as Tomas was mentioning, I'm a scientist, but I currently work in the School of Architecture and Design I'm a professor in biodesign, and I'm very interested in interdisciplinary education. So today I'm going to talk about ecosystems and design, particularly on what we call biodesign. I'm very lucky to live in Colombia, one of the most biodiverse countries in the world. And nature can teach us so many things. Nature has billions of years adapting to extreme conditions. So we can ask nature, how does nature capture water, for example? And the interesting thing is that nature doesn't have a single solution to capture water, but multiple solutions. Plants, animals have diverse solutions. And once we abstract the principle of design that nature has to solve this human challenge, we can then emulate it and construct prototypes that work for us human beings. And the interesting thing is that this is not only true of macro species, but also of fungi and bacteria. And in Colombia, there was a recent study where they characterized 7,273 species of fungi, and at least 441 species have been reported with multiple uses. So this is something that is very promising because a lot of these species have not yet been studied. Here's an example of how we can use fungi. The dyeing industry today is highly contaminated. It contaminates water sources around the world. So if we can think of organisms such as microorganisms such as fungi and bacteria that can grow in what we call food waste, for example, they can produce colors that we can then use to dye. Another example of the use of fungi is in the cosmetic industry, which today uses minerals that have to be extracted from the soil, and the social conditions, how these are extracted, are not very favorable for the people, who's usually children, who are extracting these minerals from the ground. And a group of students who won the MANA Prize for the Future of Beauty in the Biodesign Challenge in 2020, they proposed using fungi as a base for eyeshadows, where we can use fungi that nurture the skin, but also fungi that provide colors to our skin. So following Janine Bennett's sentence, she's one of the co-creators of the Biomimicry Institute. She says, we need to build cities that function like forests. This is cities that auto-regulate themselves, that if one creates waste, this waste can be the raw material for another product. So I'm going to give a series of examples of how we can use this or incorporate this thought in our everyday life. This is a material we are all used to seeing, and it's paper bubble wrap. We use this plastic to cover and protect objects, and it's very useful. However, once we receive the object surrounded by a lot of this material, we usually do not give a second use to this material, but we throw it away, and it takes millions of years for this material to go back to the earth. But there are other alternatives in nature, and this is a material called bacterial cellulose, which is produced by a consortia of bacteria and yeast that grow in a tea. Probably some of you have already drank this tea called kombucha. And this bacterial cellulose is a material that looks like leather and can have multiple uses. So this group of students from a master's course at Universidad de los Andes created a material that can serve the same purpose of protecting objects, but once you dispose it, it can return to nature as nutrients to the soil. Another example is Styrofoam. Styrofoam is used again to protect objects, but also for isolation. And it's a material that has been very useful in society, but we can think of alternatives in nature to build materials that fulfill the same functions. For example, fungi, macrofungi, grow in agricultural waste, and underneath this mushroom, there is a mycelium, which are the roots, and these roots cover the agricultural waste. And if you leave enough time for the mycelium to surround this waste, you can then put this in the oven and put it in different containers, having the shape that you need, and it can turn into objects that that look like or fulfill the function of styrofoam. Another example of nature, and this is very related to the field I come from, which is plant pathology. These are bacteria. They are called Pseudomonas syringae. And these bacteria have a weapon to attack plants, which is a protein that freezes the liquids inside the tissue. And by freezing the liquids inside the plant tissue, it breaks the tissue and allows the bacteria to invade the plant easier. As a scientist, I had never asked myself, how can I use this protein for other uses in the world? But I always thought about how can I control this bacteria so that it doesn't cause any harm to the plant. But the protein can already be synthesized in a lab. You don't need the bacteria, but you can synthetically produce the protein. And it has been used in places where in skiing resorts when there is not enough cold to produce a natural snow, you can apply the protein and the protein creates artificial snow. So a group of students in my biodesign course, they saw this phenomena. They became amazed by the science of applying a protein to a liquid and in positive temperatures, 2 degrees Celsius, for example, seeing how the water froze. So they asked themselves, in what context can I use this technology? And they thought about transportation of vaccine to rural areas in Colombia, where they can guarantee the cold chain. And what they did was create containers that would be refrigerated using the protein. They then applied nanotechnology to provide the protein with further properties such as maintaining the temperature for a longer period of time, being able to reuse it. And this is today a startup where you can keep cold chains using less amount of energy or fossil fuels. Another example of dyeing, and as I mentioned before, the dyeing industry contaminates highly water sources, are bacteria. In molecular biology, us scientists use bacteria to observe different phenomena. And this is something we have done a lot in genetic engineering, and it's applying genes that, for example, jellyfish have, so that they are fluorescent in the ocean, and we can make bacteria become fluorescent. And also there are bacteria that naturally produce pigments, but in nature we have a lot of different genes that produce pigments. So we can imagine introducing these genes that code for pigments into bacteria and having a number of different colors. And this can be used today to stain different textiles, to dye different textiles. And it's a renewable and regenerative dye. And my last example is in the fashion industry. There's a lot of people who are still interested in using reptile skin for leather, like bags, shoes, and different accessories. However, this is something that is very dangerous for our endemic species. And today, biotechnology allows us to have the same objects or products that humans want, but without having to kill an animal, but also, for example, favoring the ecosystem and helping to regenerate the ecosystem. And how can we do this? We can grow skin cells in the lab. This is something that has been done in the lab already. And what's interesting is you just have to get a little punch of the skin of a snake, for example, that somebody's interested in, and then grow those cells in the lab. And the positive thing in the lab is that also you can grow these tissues in an area, in a surface area that is better for the industry. You don't have to limit yourself to the size of the skin of the reptile. So this is something that can be done. Seeing the success that we have had combining science, biotechnology, and scientific thinking with design thinking, we created a book to take this methodology to high schools. The book has been recently translated to English and will be soon available. And it's been very interesting to take this knowledge of how you can see the challenges that we have in Latin America, and particularly in Colombia, and how we can use science and biotechnology to address these issues. So this was what I wanted to present today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Giovanna. Really interesting your work developing these harmless but also regenerative materials, right? Biomaterials. And now I would like to introduce someone who was born and he was raised in the Amazonia, also one of the leaders and founders of the very first Fab Lab in Latin America. He is the co-director of Fablab Lima, and also a very important person in the Fablab ecosystem. He also developed the very first floating Fablab in the Amazonas. Benito, welcome. Thank you for joining us. We're looking up for your presentations and how maybe we can link this idea of developing specific materials related in an ecosystem or developing within a natural ecosystem, and also in that connection with the local communities. So Beno, welcome, and the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Tomas. I'm super happy to be with you and to share some experiences from the Amazon rainforest and from different parts of the world. Yeah, this is a picture I took 1 month ago when I visited to my relative in Satipo. It's a small town in the center of the Peruvian jungle. In this place, we had been talking with my relative about the economy, the local economy, and they say me, yeah, I will sell this tree, one of these trees that took more than 30 years to grow up, in $100. $100, I say, wow, yeah, this is super cheaper. No? Why? Well, they say, I need the money for my family, for the health, and for the education of my kids. Yeah, imagine, yeah, this is the situation and the conditions of a lot of people around the world that take these resources that took years to grow and sell by almost nothing. No? But what about to create a new economy based in the biodiversity? If we see, as we can see during this presentation, the potential that the biodiversity has to generate values and solutions for many different challenges that we have in the world is huge. But we have not the mechanisms, we have not the system and the process in these local communities to generate these values and put in the service to the world. This is part of the challenge that we have. How could we create this bioeconomy with locals, with native communities, in order to turn the predative economy that we have today in the Amazon rainforest and in different parts of the world? No? Because this predation is not only happening in this area. We are experiencing the 6th mass extinction in our time. In our evolution tree, we have been losing the symbiosis with our planet, creating this massive extinction from different species and losing a lot of bioinformation. We are super happy with our digital networks, and we are super happy generating thousands of information every day in digital, but at the same time, we are losing bioinformation with all the potential solutions that we could find in this genetic information. So one of the big challenges that we have today, how to turn this extractive economy and switch to more regenerative or bioeconomy. We have different examples and different studies that show us that this is possible. We could jump from a sustainable model, an equilibrium in zero, to a more regenerative where our actions could increase the biodiversity in the world. There is not true when we talk about the development of the civilization have to necessarily create a negative impact in the biodiversity. We could become a motor of biodiversity in the world, and this is part of our challenge. And as Tomas said, we are developing this project. This is a floating lab. It's a platform to navigate different rivers in the Amazon rainforest and tributaries, connecting local communities with global communities in order to incubate this future manufacturing. But we are also experiencing in this time a self-extinction everybody knows what is happening in the world, where we talk a lot about collaboration, but we promote more competition from schools, from universities, from companies, from countries, etc. We are competing more than collaborating. So, inspired in this theory proposed by Lynn Margulis and another biologist, the symbiogenesis that she presents in this book, The Symbiotic Planet, we have created a new methodology based in collaboration. What, in short, Lynn Margulis said, collaboration is a powerful tool for evolution than competition, as Charles Darwin said. And we have really experienced that in different cases. So we promote competition more than convergence. And this is our principles that we call the symbiothinking. How could we change this attitude? How could we change our mindset from, for example, integrate instead impose possibilities instead of problems, or think in maximum possible impact instead of minimum viable product, etc. No? So in our experiences, we have experiment and measure how, for example, in a process of competition, we discard, eliminate information and choose another one. So at the end, yeah, we could have the strongest ideas from others, but on the contrary, in a convergence process, we don't eliminate information, we don't remove information, we integrate information and generate a new proposals connecting the best of the previous one. So this is powerful because you cannot see here the sharing information as a weakness. No? In a competition system, sharing your information with others is a weakness. No? But sharing information in a convergence model is a strength for the process. So at the end, when we measure the potential combinations in a competitive system, for example, in a group of 30 persons, 30 participants, we could have more with 5 groups of 6 participants per group, we could have more or less 186 potential combinations. But the difference with a convergence systems or process is huge. With the same number of participants, we could have more than 1,000 millions of potential combinations. So we experiences this symbio-creation methodology in different parts of the world, creating together physical or non-physical products or approaches. And one of our most special symbio-creation process were here in the frontier between Ecuador and Peru, where 30 years ago we experienced a war. But today, yeah, we are living a peace time. But for the most of the people in this area, opportunities are closed. No? One of 4 young people, especially girls, no, becomes well, they could be enrolled for narco-traffic, for illegal mining, for deforestation, etc. These are the opportunities that they have locally. No? So when we started this process of co-creation and invite people to propose ideas for a positive impact of their community, they say, what are you talking about? We want to, if we propose something, nobody will take care about this, nobody will make any solution. We're living in the end of the world, no? At the end of the world. So we started to explore with them using different technologies. At the beginning, the potential ideas of these young people were like an explosive, no? A homemade bomb, or ideas like that, very nocive ideas. No? But the magic happens when you share ideas, when they start to create and collaborate with others, and they jump the gap in between the ideas and the reality. And this is magic, really, no? Because at the end, the same young people that wanted to destroy their community, they say, I want to make a device to generate power, I want to make a device to purify water, etc. And I want to share that with other young people here. So at the end, we are not only losing our biodiversity in the world, we are losing, if we don't create the opportunities, we are losing the natural guardians. We are losing also the dreams of these local people. More than 90% of the young people in the Amazon rainforest want to live. So we are losing these dreams. We are in an extinction of species, of nature, and also of local guardians. This is our invitation in this morning for everybody. Become guardians of our planet, like the jaguars. That for the local communities, native communities, the jaguar means the spirit that preserves nature and regenerates nature. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Beno. I really like the jaguar image at the end. I know that you have also a very personal experience with jaguars. It's very interesting because we're kind of changing scales, right? We started in the scale of the biology, in the scale of biomaterials, what they can offer and what they can do from a design perspective. Then we changed to the scale of a community, and specifically in your case, Beno, what you have been working in the community or in the context of the Amazonia, trying to mix this bio but also digital technologies through your personal methodology of symbio-creation. Is a way of propagating collaboration. And then now we are going to move to another scale, to the scale of cities and bioregions, of how we can create innovation processes in order to change the production process internally in these scales. So I would like you to introduce to Marion. Marion Monreal. She's a researcher of Fablab Barcelona from IAG. Also, she's leading a couple of very interesting EU or European research projects. She was part of the team of Remix El Barrio that won the first prize in digital, no? In Vienna. So Marion, welcome. Thank you for joining us. The stage is yours.
Thanks, Thomas, for the introduction. I will share directly the screen. Let me know if it's working.
We can see your screen perfectly.
Yeah, super. So yeah, I am working in the Fablab Barcelona, so I have some familiarity with the two Tomas, and I really like this ecosystem that I would like to discuss a bit today. And also, of course, we can try to make this link with what has been mentioned with the biodesign, the co-creation part, and maybe more like bioregional scale changes through different projects that we are doing in the Fab Lab. So in the presentation now, I will go in those 4 points. I would like to think about ecosystem as innovation ecosystem, included, of course, this link with nature, but also thinking of what does it mean innovation in our life and how we build innovative ecosystems. So from the inside, and after reflecting on such ecosystem and how we can support this reflection in this frame of Fab City. And we'll present also after the link with all this work with what we would like to present and to work together in the Master in Distributed Design and Innovation. So let's go inside and start by the team of Fablab Barcelona, which you can see here. We have been developing all along these past years different work on focus on of course people and fabrication, digital fabrication, but also this really link to social innovations and how we can participate as citizens to the change that is happening. So here you see this different area of research that we have. You see that the design is already something really systemic in itself. There is different axes and everything is aimed to connect together. What we do mostly, because of when I look at the other example, we saw different culture. And here I focus a bit on the European project we are working in, so it's a bit European focused. But in there, we are building a lot of learning experience. We try to support as much as possible and facilitate co-creation, and still having this influence and participation of peer learning and global networks. So just a few projects, just to name them, and after I will focus on Remix El Barrio that Tomas just introduced. So we are working with this Fab City vision and Fab City context with Tomas since a lot of time, and we have worked now we worked in Trino, which is really an application in different cities of Europe to the Fab City context, and focus on different axes, mainly looking at cultural heritage. And it's quite interesting to see how these projects are making the link between different elements that are really crucial, between people, between the past culture, the heritage, between the circular and all the material ecology we were mentioning, how this needs to be thought together so we can really build this transformation. We have been introduced to Reflow before. I'm also part of the She Makes consortium that I would like to mention, which is really focused on two ecosystems on textile and clothing that are experimenting together through a different type of innovative disciplines. Biology, e-textile, industry 4.0, and the She Makes project joined really two ecosystems and work on how we can foster inclusivity in this and how we can promote the women who are making. So it's interesting also the approach that is there. I won't tell so much on the other one, just now focusing on the case of Remix El Barrio. So Remix El Barrio, it was really a nice experience. It was in the district of San Martín, in the neighborhood of Poblenou in Barcelona. And it was about tackling the problem of food waste and trying to connect this problem with the environment of makers and to create a dynamic in the neighborhood with restaurants, with different stakeholder, local association to learn together and to propose solutions together. And it lasts 2 years. It starts with like a soup of synergy where we were cooking different vegetables with the neighbors inside Fablab Barcelona, and it come to this collective of Remix Food Waste Biomaterial Maker, which has received a prize, the start prize, that is for promoting the co-creation aspect. And they propose like a range of products made out of food waste. So you can see here with the diversity of the product that were proposed. And here the different collaboration that we have been fostering during these 2 years of projects. So this is just the neighbor of Barcelona. Of course, we have been also extending the collaboration since then. What was interesting in Remix El Barrio was all this process of workshops together and this process of learning step by step with the designer and collaborating with the local stakeholder. But we came also with this manifesto, and I think this is really nice that when we are co-creating and we are building community, we need to think about what are the common value and what we want to build. And I think it's the first step on that. And in Remix, it took time to reach this set of value and project that we want to create, but now it's really something that is instilled really in the spirit of Remix. So it's a short introduction of all the pilot and project that there is in the Fablab Barcelona. Now I want just to share with you some mental models, like we name, and design tools that we can use to reflect on this ecosystem level. So first of all, as you have seen, there is many maps in the different presentation we have today. First, one aspect I would like to emphasize is it's super important to observe the stakeholder dynamics. And according to what we observe and what we are living, we can better plan how to facilitate such engagements. Second, here, it's something that is really related to the importance of the local context and the territory where you are. And I think when we are in this mindset of Fab City, we think local and global at the same time, and we make links between scales. So I think just when you are in the project, trying to identify and create links between what is happening at different scale, it's really important. I put here a diagram that has been done by different stakeholders who are working in the Ostana village, which is a small village, mountain village in Italy, and they really look at how they can regenerate this village, and this is a tool that they use to map a bit the different dependencies and between the different scale of the system that they want to act on. This is also something I wanted to share. This is super important to sometimes when we are in the project, we are a bit locked in the project and we need to advance. But when we talk about ecosystem of co-creation, it is not just about evaluating the product, the service, the people around, but it's also realizing all the context that is around. And it was nice with this pilot of Remix El Barrio inside the CEST Code project to look at the changes and the ecosystem at different levels, so the micro level, the meso level, and the macro level. It was formalized by the University of Dortmund, and it was really interesting to look at how, for instance, in Barcelona, the political context can influence, or the culture of cooperation can influence a lot on the trajectory of what we have been doing. And globally, when we some other graph that was interesting to look at, and especially when we look for macro change at the territorial from the small scale experiments, we have been looking at different co-creation pilots in different labs, and we really see them as an interface, like an intermediary between what is emerging between people, between small scale experiments and the policy making's macro scale level. And all of this is really a different type of playground where we can that are interacting with each other now. So it's quite nice. This is what I wanted to share on that. I hope we will envision many other cases and many other tools and models, way to reflect. Here I put some challenge for the future ecosystem that we saw from, for instance, this remix case, that is super important to strategize also how the pilot will be consolidated, how they will be sustained after such European project, that there is also an importance to better understand how we can measure social environmental impact, how we can foster cooperation between stakeholders, but not just during our time frame and in our scale, but through the different scale, and ready to be grounded to look to socio-ecological realities at some time. Once we have started with a challenge, we might have some change on that, and we can forget sometime. So hopefully we will have a chance in the master in this distributed design and innovation to look more deeply in those topics. So yeah, that was what I wanted to share. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you very much, Marion. It's really interesting, the idea. Well, first of all, I will ask all the panelists to turn on their camera. We're going to start having let's say a brief conversation and Q&A, maybe in between of us. I really like the idea, no, of involving people, right? But also involving, let's say, different agents that can become in the shape of humans, non-humans, but also in the shape of a broader group of humans, like a community, but also in the natural ecosystems. Because typically we think that we can do technology like something that is apart, that is completely detached from their specific context. So in this way, this idea of understanding technology as a systemic, interspecies, and an interscale approach, right, led us to a new way of understanding the development of technology, maybe in the mixture of technologies, ecosystems, but also communities. So I would like to ask maybe Marion, Giovanna, or Beno about this idea of mixing the bio and the digital technologies for interspecies well-being, right? Maybe to found this purpose of developing harmless digital and bio technologies to contribute to this interspecies well-being. So I don't know, what is your experience and what are your thoughts behind this idea of mixing technologies, communities, and ecosystems?
Okay, I can start. So I think it's very important to start from the communities because they understand the challenges, and that technologies themselves might have solutions for these communities, but if the community doesn't appropriate the solution, it won't be sustainable in time. And this has been one of the greatest challenges for us scientists because we speak in terms that not everybody understands. And we do things that in the lab are possible, but perhaps when we have to scale them, there are certain challenges. And this is why from the beginning, we need to work together to understand what are our design restrictions, who needs to adopt the technology, what are the economic possibilities of this community, and how can our technology move forward in the future in a sustainable way, in a way that doesn't harm the ecosystem, but on the contrary, that it regenerates it or makes it better. So in conclusion, I think it's very important to co-work, scientists, people who understand technologies with the community, make the community aware of how the technology works, and hopefully make them participate in the technology and how to scale it up, and then understand how the community can appropriate such technology for the future, for their own future.
Great, very interesting. Thank you, Anna. Maybe Beno, Lorenzo, or Marion, maybe you want to add something?
Yeah, I would love to add two examples. One, it's the community of burros in the Titicaca's Lake. What's interesting of this community, they have created a symbiosis with their context for long time. So if we understand the landscape that they have made, it's a super example to develop new technologies today in the regenerative way. For example, they use one single element, it's a totora that grow in the lake, to make the land, the island, to make housing, to make furnitures, the transport systems, etc. With one single element that will biodegrade in the lake and come back to the nature and create a closed cycle that they use for living and for make all these activities. This is a huge challenge today. When we talk about infrastructure, one of the biggest contaminators in the world, we have not cleared these cycles. No? Learning from this process, we could create new technologies inspired, connected with these ancestral communities. The other example that I think we could, we are working in is in the case of the flooding Fab Lab. How could we use the local knowledge in the Amazon rainforest to be replicated in another part of the world where we, or in another planets where we have not this biodiversity. I mean, for a long time, the areas with a huge biodiversity have been considered like a bank of resources where we take the material and we depredate and create this massive extinction. The change model here, I think, and technology have a key component, is not take the material, take the knowledge, in this case, the bio-knowledge. With this bio-knowledge, we could replicate and sense to technologies in another part of the world where we don't have this biodiversity, the world of outside of the world, of the planet, in order to increase biodiversity. This is another strategy that I think will work, and the connection in between the ancestral knowledge and nature information and digital technologies could create a fabulous match.
Very interesting. Thank you very much, Beno. Lorenzo, you have your hand raised.
I was just saying what Beno just mentioned. Just a little. There is also we have the duty to and try to understand the difference in between cultures as well. There is no common, and there is no one size fits all strategy in here, especially when we are talking about one side rural or even tribal communities and Occidental Western society, much more complex. In this, especially in Western society, we have so many topics to tackle. We cannot handle them. So we need to trust people. And it's very important to create this connection between people and these local reputations, and where somebody who knows a lot about one topic can actually in charge himself or herself of proposing a solution. And not everybody has to understand that. So we can we can take all this information we can share globally, put it together with the local ancestral knowledge, create this communication between them, and propose a solution from there at the local, mostly at local scale. And we need to open the possibility to delegation, to understand that somebody is going to take care of something and somebody else just don't even have to tackle that topic. For that matter is very important, trustability and transparency, which is something we're tackling here.
If I may, because I think that you touched something that I am actually experiencing, Lorenzo. I'm now relocated in Bali, Indonesia. It's 11:20 p.m. here. I'm the other side of the world where Beno is. And one of the things that we're trying to do here, it's not only bringing like the technology or kind of the standardized part of the whole story. We're also creating mechanisms for the generation of positive feedback loops between the knowledge that you can bring globally, but also the knowledge that is present locally, right? Many times, I mean, I have been coming here for many years and only been living here for a couple, but at the beginning, you start with this excitement, like, okay, we should bring a Fablab. I had this obsession, putting a Fablab everywhere I go. And Bali was one of these places, and Indonesia in general, where you say like, what, it's really needed. Like the level of craftsmanship is so good, and there is like the mastery of certain materials are in a level that I don't think any machine will actually manage to do it. No, so that's one dimension that I started to learn. Like, okay, there is a way to unpack the use of digital fabrication. It's more around digital literacy, I would say, and also to create complementary tools to existing knowledge, and also to incorporate younger generations into the productive economy, which is actually younger generations are going to the service economy, which is not productive at all, especially places like this. and also happen in Barcelona. People go and they learn how to be a waitress before they learn how to master a tool, right? And being a waitress will give you access to money, which will give you access to buy cheap things made in China, sold in Amazon, right? So the similar things are happening here. And on the other hand, I also see something that is interesting to bring to the any discussion of like a community situated interventions. I think Ron Eglash is an excellent academic writing about this. But it's I think also it's understanding that, especially in the East, no, here, that culturally speaking, the reasons for which a person would like to engage in learning these tools and be empowered and do something are not the same. They don't match with this idea of the maker hero of the West, right? And which I think some of us has fallen in the trap of trying to become that hero as well in some point. And the culture here is more collective, right? It's the family goes before you. Then there is also quite interesting that I'm learning here is that the decision-making process is based on the trust between people. And it's something in the West, I think that we have been systematically removing the trust between people and then transferring into something else, to an institution, to a company, to something abstract. But still, I think that, you know, we have opportunities to learn from communities that still base their decision making into the trust with each other. They don't take decisions in simple majority. They have to reach full consensus until the last member of the family or the community agrees. They don't agree into something. It's not like a 51% push the rest of the people to do whatever, which is actually basically now what you know, polarized politics is are using, no? But anyways, I maybe extend too much, but I think like you know, this idea of contextualizing design interventions full on, right? And I'm thinking about that level of detail and that granularity. I think it's not incompatible with probably some of the initial ideas that many of us had when it started to play with digital technologies, which is, oh, let me do something, put in open source, and I'm sure that someone else in the world, I'm going to save the world because someone else is going to copy it and adopt it. I think there are like a lot of other layers that we are forgetting, and we need to build those complementary support systems in order to onboard and to be onboarded as well with and within these communities, and also for these communities to be part of what we're doing globally. Who wants to jump into that? Tomas?
No, yeah, no, totally agree also, right? Being in a specific context, or maybe being in a very distant position from the center of the mass of the world, let's say, mainly, let's say Europe, or maybe North America, right? Maybe being in the global South also give us a different perspective of understanding what context are, right? Yeah.
But at least that's shifting. I think that the center of gravity of the world is shifting. It's actually, and probably we don't know where it's going. And I think that, you know, the hegemony of the West is, you know, starting to be debated. And we see like it maybe doesn't work anymore for many things.
Yeah. No, totally agree. But also what I really like find it very interesting from what we have been all discussing here is that mainly we're focusing in the very first floors of the Maslow pyramid in what the humans really need, right? So we're not making technology because we can't do it, because machines allowed us to make this super complex technology that actually we don't need it. And maybe the human culture in this way of being part of an ecosystem, of understanding ourselves in a position where we are only one kind of agents of these ecosystems, we require very basic things, right? So maybe how digital and biotechnologies can also help us to develop those needs on the very basic of the first basic floors of the Maslow pyramid, right? It's not about doing complex or super high performance things. It's just doing the basics. So just reconnecting us as humans, right? Somehow. So maybe, does anyone wants to comment something on that, on what we really want to, like, how we are focusing our future, maybe from applying or developing technology in the very basics? Giovanna, maybe you raise your hand.
Yeah,
sorry.
I raised my hand. Yeah. So I think today's challenges are complex. they can't be seen from a single lens. They have to be seen in interdisciplinary teams. And I also think that one of our greatest challenges is that once we have a solution for something, that solution does not necessarily have to go worldwide. It can be a local solution, and that's okay. Because sometimes when things work, we're always thinking of, okay, how do we take this everywhere? But if locally different solutions arise, maybe for the same problem, it might be a better solution. We don't have to transport things. We don't have to scale things that are challenging, or even if it could be possible, it could generate other challenges or other problems of what in the Industrial Revolution causes. So I think it's also relevant to think local. It's relevant to value people's knowledge, their culture, to take that into account, to take the communities into account when you create. And definitely what I think the future awaits is a co-creation between teams where communities must be taken into account. Even if our scientists or technology or everything, every time I start one of my first class in biodesign, students always ask me, but why do we still have problems if you're showing us solutions for practically everything? And it's because even if technologies are available, there's a lot of different issues, political issues, economical issues, and a lot of different challenges that we still need to address as a world. That would be my conclusion. Thank you.
Super interesting. Maybe Beno, Lorenzo, or Marion, if you want to add something.
I just want to, I just wanted to add maybe a perspective to me personally helps a lot to imagine how it should work. So detach completely from reality and in an abstract way, and to imagine how society, how utopia would be, and which part of this utopia is actually doable in trying to implement it. It has a term, it's called utopia with the E in front. It's actually the doable part of utopia. That helps me to generate a direction for the projects, but also helps a lot people around to try to understand what they actually need and what they want. So it's I think it's a pretty helpful perspective.
Yeah, in my experience inside Fablab, this amazing community that I love too much, we don't have to wait for government in order to make something, or we don't have to wait to the system will change. No? We are the change. We could create the new models. And as Paki Fowler say, don't fight with the existing models. Create something new that make it obsolete. We know that our systems in general in different areas are obsolete. So it's our challenge to creative and technological communities, because we move super fast, faster than another system, to make these models and to inspire the world with that.
Great. Well, thank you all. We're going to wrap it until here because we already passed for a long time. I'm sure that this conversation could be extended for hours and hours in different contexts. It was really a pleasure to have you all here, Lorenzo, Beno, Giovanna, Marion, also Alysia, that have another commitment. And we are looking forward to see you all in upcoming events that probably we're going to participate as a group of people. And also, please keep all the updates or be following all of the updates of FabCity Foundation, also the DigitalFUTURES. I don't know, Tomas, if you want to say something to close also.
Sure. I mean, like just complementing what you said, this is an excellent opportunity this has been an excellent opportunity to gather together some of the people that is involved. I mean, not only in the program, but also I think that we are part of a larger mission. I think what is interesting now is that we're looking at learning, beyond learning itself. I mean, we're trying to, make an influence in the real world while trying to learn, and not is someone teaching to someone else, but it's also people learning together on how to address the current complexity, which is impossible to do it from, a problem solution point of view. It's quite it's quite different from what we used to understand the world. We need to re-understand the world as well. And part of that is creating opportunities and spaces to learn. Again, like these, enabling environments. I want to go back to that definition. Is fundamental to generate new knowledge, which is what we have. We have to rewire a lot of the things that we have been learning for the last few decades. And the opportunity that we have today, thanks to the use of digital technologies, but not only digital technologies that stay in the screen, but also that go and can be translated into the physical world, is one of the most wonderful things that we have today. I wanted also to invite you to come to Bali in October. Stay tuned in our networks. We're organizing a big innovation event, and it's the Fablab Conference and Fab City Summit. And hopefully we can see some of you in person, learning here within Bali, with Bali, but also with the global knowledge. And that's part of what I was trying to explain before. We're going to create that enabling environment here with some of our local partners, but also bringing the people from the CBA at MIT, Fab Foundation, and the Fab City ecosystem. So yeah, I think that's all from my side. Tomas, Neil, it's been a pleasure again. Over to you.
Maybe I could just pick up on things. I mean, it'd be nice to try and we have Philip Yuan here, who's joining us in Shanghai. It'd be good to get his opinion. I think the challenge, I would say, is really how do we as architects, as educators, actually implement some of these things? I mean, it's very, the ambitions are very noble, but the applications, how do we even do that within the construction side? I think that often there is a danger that we exaggerate our agency in being able to make those changes. I think in the context of a kind of real life scenario where you get people like Bolsonaro operating, how can we have some way of challenging that in an effective way on the ground that makes it happen? So I think that remains the issue, and I think that for architects it remains a real challenge. What role do we have? I mean. So I don't know if I can invite Philip Yuan to make some comments. I mean, Philip is in Shanghai, and they have their own conditions they're dealing with right now. But I don't know, Philip, if you'd like to add something at all.
Thank you so much for the remarkable talks. I think it's really interesting from different cultural background and sharing our different opinions with each other. In 2018, I launched my book, Collaborative Laboratory, in Berlin. And at that time, I think in my book, I also talk about the collaborative culture. Neil and me, we set up 10 years ago, actually, and that's a certain kind of understanding of the planet. I think the planet right now have different missions from the human beings to understanding the relationship, not only the human with nature, but also the human with the planet. I think it's about climate. It's about right now the different political position from different nations. But I think the layers of the information actually totally change the world. The rethinking on the planet, rethinking on the relationship between the human being and nature, I think that's right now the task, the vision and mission we should talk about. So I appreciate the Fab City idea Thomas put forward. I think it's a re-understanding of the productivity in the future, new generation. I think that's not about nation, that's not about country, but that's about the relationship between the human beings, the relationship between human and nature, relationship between the human and the environment. That's the new milestone. We should sharing our opinions and make discussions with each other. I think also Arati sent me an invitation to participate in the Tallinn Biennale and a topic about the food. I think the regenerative production for the future citizens, they should produce the new opportunity for the food. It's a new type of look. Maybe we should make discussion. We put forward our proposals as about Shanghai. This is such a big city with 25 million people, but how to solve the food problem. So we're right now locked down in the city because of the COVID, very serious situation in the last months. So the food is a very serious problem. So we should find the new possibility how to rethinking on agriculture, how to produce by ourselves inside the city or nearby the city. So that's maybe probably we should be thinking on what is local and what is global. Probably I appreciate the idea who make the, I think her name, the lady just put for the idea. I think we should rethinking on the local. I think probably a lot of the global culture is based on the new local culture. I think that's about the local solution. But probably the most important vision is not about the local or global, but about the relationship between human nature, technology, or the cyber world. So that is a reorganization of this kind of thinking. So really appreciate your ideas. I think welcome. We would like to set up different hubs in Digital Future workshops this year, online workshops, online hubs to make a further discussion how to make use of the future digital technology and how to make new solutions and set up our new mission and the vision for the whole community. So thanks for your remarkable ideas and sharing all this kind of knowledge with different people. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Philip. Indeed, there is a huge challenge in how we design agency, right? How we design these entities that we're creating, right? From human capacity, right? A couple of months ago, there was a very nice publication that measured for the first time the impact of the entities that we have been designed and created that are thrown into the environment, right? The result of that quantification was catastrophic. We're breaking 5 of the 8 ceiling floor ecological floors. And so we have a huge impact in the things that we design and how we design them from an architectural design and urban perspective, right? So I think that the challenge now is how we design, let's say, these low energy materials entities, or let's say harmless entities, and place them in the environment. And we have 2 questions of the public in the YouTube channel that maybe, Beno, I think that you are one of the most capable people in this panel because you work very closely with the relationship of digital fabrications and community in a specific community in the Amazonas. And I will pack these 2 questions. The first one, if you have like any comments regarding the possibility of the digital fabrication imposing a threat to the employment, maybe perhaps the labor work, right? Because it's not just maybe the typical thought that probably in some countries they have is that the digital will absorb the human labor, right? But maybe it's not, maybe you have a different perspective on that. And then Stuart from Africa, he said that it's very difficult to combine communities of the potential of learning digital fabrication because much of the communities still use very traditional tribal thinking. Beno, as maybe you are the most suitable person to answer those questions.
Thank you so much, Tomas. Yeah, for the first question, it was exactly the same question that our friend Walter Gonzalez, this is a Walter Gonzalez book, had when the first Fablab arrived to Peru, because he said, hey, what will happen with artisan people, with local process? It could be a really trade for all of these people. After some time, he realized that the real trade is not the technology. The real trade is not empower people with the knowledge and the technology. This is the real trade. when you empower people and when you bring the knowledge and the technologies and the access to resources, opportunities, they will switch, evolve, they will create, and they will generate amazing impact, as our friend Walter Gonzalez evidenced with all of this job. And in the case of local communities and the people that live in, for example, in the Amazon, when we go to work with them, we don't arrive with solutions. We don't arrive with the meaning of technology as a solution. We arrive with the meaning of technology as a platform, as an opportunity. As Gustavo Gutierrez said, it's not about to be the voice of people that have not voice. It's about to provide a platform to develop their own voice. I think this is the main role of technology, and people understand this super fast, take the technologies and create their own voice.
Thank you very much, Beno. Maybe you can share with us the reference of Walter's book, because he has many, many books. He's one of very strong leaders of digital technologies combined with pre-colonial, let's say, and technologies. Just to wrap it up, I will leave you all with Neil. Neil, if you want to give us some updates and news of the further schedule, maybe.
Yes, maybe we can just put up the schedule for the summer. Yeah, just to mention that to repeat what I said earlier on, we next week we will be introducing some of the workshops or plans, shall we say, for the summer, and this is the important schedule for those of you who missed it at the very beginning. So we're going to start off the summer festival with the Doctoral Consortium, which Philip Yuan is looking after this time round. That's followed, it starts on the 13th of June, followed by the big conference, which will be finished by the 25th of June. We then move into the opening ceremony itself, followed by the workshops. And we're working primarily in using the language system, using our different language channels this year. We've got actually a lot of workshops. We're not quite sure how many we end up with, but it's going to be a lot of different workshops, and not so many in English, but more in different languages, which I think is an important development. And certainly our different language channels have been one of the great successes, I think, of this last few months. They've been very popular. And then finally, we wrap things up on the 3rd of July with the closing ceremony. And I think I'm looking forward to this event. It's going to be an incredible event as ever. And a lot of work's going into this right now. We are developing a new website for the summer, DigitalFutures.international, and we look forward to welcoming you to that session. I'd like to thank the two Thomases today for this session. I look forward to seeing some of you in Barcelona in a few weeks' time. And I'd like to also thank Philip for being here and wish him all the best. I hope that you guys can come through the rather difficult times you have at the moment in Shanghai. And eventually we look forward to, of course, all being back in Shanghai at some point, sometime in the future. We're looking forward to that very much. So, and thank you. And I'd also like to thank you those behind the scene, Gustavo, Bavlin, and the whole team of Digital Futures who've been putting together the promotional material for this and have been working on things in the background. There is a lot of work that goes on. I always describe this like an iceberg. What you see on the top is only a small fraction of what's going on. So thank you everyone today, and very soon we've got another session in Arabic that's starting up today, and then next week we'll follow on with our discussion about the big summer event. So thank you so much. It's been a very inspirational session today. A lot of great noble ambitions. Let's just see how over the coming months and years these ambitions come to some kind of fruition. So thank you very much, and look forward to seeing you again shortly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.